Well, this is really gonna fucking piss vegans off. Well, welcome to another motherfucking feedback. This is my podcast style, which I've been doing a lot of lately, where I discuss, things, topics of discussion that, interest me in the realm of intermittent fasting, weight loss, diets, and, of course, the ketogenic diet. Now, anybody who's watched me for a significant amount of time knows that I've made fun of vegans quite a bit during my journey. Don't take it personally. It's just my opinion of the vegan philosophy. I don't like it. I'm never going to like it. I do believe there's room for animal stuff in our diets. In fact, in some cases, I believe it is very beneficial to eat certain animals. However, I do agree that a lot of our meat supply is fucked up right now. So we can agree there. Yeah, there's some fucked up processed meats that are bad for you. Definitely. I don't disagree with that at all. But to eliminate it completely from my diet is not feasible for me as a human fucking being. So today I'm decided, reluctantly mind you, to discuss vegan diets versus the ketogenic diet versus the low-fat, high-carb diet. And my reason for doing so is I feel I need to reinforce to people who watch me or follow what I do why I've come to the conclusions I have, that I'm not just talking out of my ass, that I actually did quite a bit of homework, not just what I'm about to show you and discuss today, but there are numerous studies, lectures by scientists and practicing clinical doctors that believe the way I believe, and this is the culmination of knowledge that I use for my dietary and weight loss philosophy. That being said, my channel has never been about optimal health. It is impossible in today's environment in the United States and in many other parts of the world to have a toxin-free, perfect, fucking healthy diet. You can get about 70% of the way if you're really, really vigilant and really, really restrictive. But it's just not feasible for me as a normal motherfucking average asshole walking the streets to try and pursue optimal health. Now, by optimal health, I'm talking about really getting into the micronutrition and deciding what certain foods you can't eat because it has too much of this or too little of that. It turns out you can get pretty far in your health by just eliminating processed foods and sugar. That's the biggest thing you can do to be healthier, to lose weight. However you do it, there are many methods to do this. There's the still eat the shit while burning as much of it as you fucking humanly possible off of your ass. That's a method. How'd that work out for everybody? So, during my process, I've uncovered things. It turns out that a lot of things that I can do, that I feel I can sustain over the long term, are actually healthier for you than a normal fucking balanced diet. So we're going to get into that a little bit today. I'm going to talk about some things about the vegans that I completely disagree with. Now, I do have some vegans that follow me, mostly for my intermittent fasting. John Derp comes to mind. Who actually I don't mind so much because while they do advocate their diet to me regularly, they do understand that I'm probably not gonna fucking listen to it. First of all, posting links to Dr. Greger, who is a vegan advocate doctor, who has an inordinate amount of bias in any data he presents. He will cherry pick his data and leave out things that don't support his theories. He contends that insulin resistance is caused by fat, animal fat in particular. And I've watched several of his lectures. I've watched a whole documentary that he was behind. I forget the name of it. I'd have to go back and look through the list of shit I watched. But overall, I found him to be not only biased, but trying to really, really dissuade people with a broad brush that being a vegan is the way to go. And I can tell you, not everybody can be a vegan, just like not everybody can be ketogenic. I am fully willing to admit that there are certain people who are genetically more tolerant of carbs, that have genetically less insulin resistance than others. But vegans want to ignore this. And that pisses me off. That's why I make fun of vegans, is they want to ignore that and somehow justify not eating animals, which is a political decision, not a health one. And they want to validate their diet by making everybody a fucking vegan and outlawing all the other shit, or taxing the fuck out of it, or doing whatever they can to, pretty much control what the rest of us, you and I, eat. The people on the ketogenic sugar is bad side of the house, yeah, they want to legislate out some things to make it more difficult to eat sugar. But they don't want to tell you to stop. They just want you to do it in healthy amounts so that we're not all paying your fucking healthcare bills. So what I'm getting to is the differences here in the diets. I mean, the reason why vegan and ketogenic they don't get along very well is because they're polar opposites. But the other difference is people on a ketogenic diet don't give a fuck if you're on a vegan diet. I don't care if you're a vegan. I really don't. It doesn't impact me in the least, especially if it's working for you. If you're a vegan and you're dying, that's on you. That has nothing to do with me. If you're a vegan and you have metabolic syndrome, that's your mistake. And it was preventable. But you chose to do that, and that's as long as you knew what you were doing. I get into it with vegans when they try and tell somebody who's carb intolerant, who has high insulin resistance, they tell them, oh, you should eat more carbs. When you're trying to lose weight, eat more carbs. Are you fucking nuts? Professional bodybuilders don't even do this, and they carb the shit out of themselves regularly. They go in these little cycles. Oh, I'm in a cutting cycle, so I have to cut down my carbs and eat only these fucking 4 foods for the whole fucking time. And then they get down to their 8% body fat, they pose for the cameras, and then they go back to being fat fucks because they eat all the fucking carbs they want. Granted, some of them try and do healthier carbs, but even with those healthier carbs, guess what they're putting back on their body? Fat, because they refill their glycogen despite their workout fucking regimen, and it spills over into fat. So they have to bulk and cut and bulk and cut. And the reason for the bulk cut cycle is carbs and insulin. Doesn't matter whether it's a fucking cheeseburger or, a fucking donut or a goddamn whole wheat piece of bread or some nice healthy pasta. The fact of the matter remains, when your glycogen is full, no matter what your carb source is, it will be converted to fat. It's that simple. And in some people, this process is very easy. Happens very quickly. I'm one of them. If I eat more carbs than my glycogen stores can handle, I immediately put on fat. And I put it on quickly. And then it takes me a long time to get rid of it again. So when a vegan comes at me and tells me to do these things and tells people who are trying and really struggling with this issue, oh, you should just be a vegan, you'll lose all kinds of weight. That's where we're going to get into it. You see, turns out this has been tested. There's been a study. It's called the A to Z study. Not the best study in the world, but it's all we got to work with right now in regards to diet versus diet. There's not, the vegans want to trump up and down, we got this study, that study. There's hardly any studies that test vegan diet versus keto or vegan versus any other diet. There is a study that kind of does it, vegan versus standard diet. But if you look at the data, it's the same as any diet versus the standard diet. Ornish, the Zone, they call it Learn, which is what the standard nutritional recommendations are. And of course Atkins. And that's what the A to Z study is. So let me get into a little bit of show and tell on some of these things here. So this is the battle of the diets. This is the guy that did the study, A to Z study, answering questions, running through slides on what he thinks. It should be noted that the guy that did this study is a lifelong vegetarian, not a vegan. Vegetarian, meaning he has a little bit of dairy in his life, a little bit of, some eggs here and there, and a little bit of cheese, but no red meats, no, fish. He has a little bit of fish, a little bit of dairy, a little bit of, this and that. And he, is a vegetarian, which leads to the Ornish side. Now, the Ornish is like a vegan that can have a little itty bitty bit of like egg white or some fucking, cheese or dairy. Very little, like almost non-existent amounts. Most of the proteins they get are plant-based or fat-based. So Ornish, if you look at this study, is as close to vegan as you get, The only difference between a vegan and them is if it came from an animal, a vegan isn't eating it. And not all vegans are like that. Only raw vegans. Because you still got the vegans out there, I'm a vegan, and then they go in and they buy it, oh, I got the fucking vegan cereal, and it's filled with sugar and refined carbs and processed fucking crap. Not healthy at all. Just because you have the term vegan written all over you doesn't mean you're a fucking real vegan. I'm talking to raw vegans when I'm talking to vegans, because if you're eating any processed foods, even if you bought it out of the nature section of the goddamn grocery store or to some little vegan shirt where everyone has vegan store where everyone has fucking beards and they're wearing sweaters and they're like, yes, I'm a vegan, and them motherfuckers, you're not a fucking vegan. Be a raw vegan if you're gonna fucking be a vegan, instead of finding all these refined processed fucking shitty foods and then coming at me and telling me you're a fucking vegan, because you're not. Okay? You're not. I'm not even a true keto. I'm not following a well-formulated ketogenic diet. I have processed foods in my life. I'm very picky on what they are. Mainly artificial sweeteners. So, yeah, a lot of ketos, hardcore ketos, would take a shit on my diet. But it's what works for me. And it's what gets me the results and what gives me the insulin control that I want. But I digress. Anyways, this is the video. The link is on the Stanford channel. The Battle of the Diets, is the name of the title. You can find it by searching. But let me play a little quick excerpt on some of the results from this study.
Better, but nobody really lost. On average, none of the diets did fantastically well, which is really what we thought in the beginning. We just didn't have enough data to show it. Okay, so now let me show you some other tweaks to this. So for one thing, losing weight isn't what it's all about. It's your health getting better. So
now keep that in mind. It's not just about the weight loss. A lot of vegans think they're being the healthiest. I hate to break it to you, this study proves you wrong.
We looked at some other things, and everybody said, oh, on that Atkins diet, you might lose weight, but your health is going to go to hell. Oh, your cholesterol is going to go through the roof, etc. So we compared all the diets for different things. So here's all the things that were statistically.
Now keep in mind, the Learn diet, that's the balanced diet. That has the most balanced, It's not quite as extreme as a low carb, but not quite as hardcore as a high carb. It's kind of in the middle. So learns like the middle, what, normal low fat diet and exercise. The zone is a little closer to the low carb side, and Ornish is probably as close to vegan as you get in this study. And the differences are negligible between vegan and Ornish, in my opinion. It should also be noted that all of these people were encouraged to exercise. So exercise was not a factor. He actually goes over that in this video at one point where he says there was no significant difference in regards to exercise or the amount or anything like that. It had no bearing on the study whatsoever. So that's another thing that leans on the side that exercise is pretty much just a tool to get your glycogen down in regards to how many carbs you're eating. And the less carbs you're eating, probably the less exercise you really have to do.
Statistically significant, and every one of these actually favored Atkins over one or more of the other groups. There was no group that...
And just to clarify, Atkins is the same as a ketogenic diet.
It did better than Atkins in anything. Not cholesterol, not blood pressure, not insulin, not glucose. Maybe some things we didn't measure, but of the classic risk factors that people were worried about, nothing got worse. They did a little better than the other folks. And then...
Okay. Now that's just a little better. So the difference between the vegan and Atkins is a little better to be on Atkins, especially if you have high insulin resistance. It's right there in the study. And it's not the only study that shows evidence of this. There are plenty of studies on high fat versus low fat to go on, not necessarily focusing on whether or not you're eating animal products, but high fat versus low fat. There's a lot of studies in this, and nearly all of them show that the high fat diet with low carbs is better than the low fat diet with high carbs on every fucking study. Show me a high carb, low fat study that beats a low carb, high fat study. Make sure it's not funded by some food company or some vegan with a hidden agenda, and I will read it and be like, okay, maybe there's something here. I have yet to see it. Anytime I challenge a vegan on this, they can't show me shit. They regurgitate little bits of things and data that support their position and ignore the overwhelming amount of data and evidence that contradicts their position. And it's, another thing that vegans got wrong is everybody's the same. There are different people that have different fucking tolerances. Like, look at this. Angelina Jolie says the vegan diet almost killed her, She wasn't getting enough nutrition because she cut out all animal products and meats and apparently didn't make up for it. Now vegans will be like, well, she wasn't eating the right shit. Well, okay. That's what I have to say to that. This is Dr. Mercola's site, by the way. Now, I'm not a big fan of Dr. Mercola. He does support a lot of the things I do, and he has a very good scientific approach. But he's kind of orthorexic in a lot of his, what he says. Orthorexia being a person who fears, who's so focused on healthy foods that they actually start missing out on certain things because health-wise, because they are fearing, they're like my diet is the healthiest and yours is not, so I'm better than you motherfuckers. I find he's in a lot of fasting stuff. He does support intermittent fasting. He does support low carb, high fat for some peoples. He's just really picky on which types of foods are eaten for what. So I still follow a lot of what Dr. Mercola does for that reason. But for the most part, he's not my favorite. But you know, if you go to this website up here, articles.mercola.com, and, you know, or you can just type in Angelina Jolie says vegan diet nearly killed her. And he goes into what I thought was a pretty intelligent reason for, you know, why being a vegetarian isn't for everyone, and how to evaluate whether or not it's something that you can do. That's one thing vegans get wrong every time. They think everybody can eat their way and improve in health and be fine. Someone like myself, I can tolerate 50 grams of carbs while trying to lose weight. Anything more than that, my weight loss will stall. Anything more than 100 grams of carbs, my weight starts to climb, regardless of how many fucking calories I eat. Regardless. I've had myself down to 600 to 800 calories per day, eating, you know, whatever I wanted, but that was how low, and I still gained weight because I was having huge insulin spikes. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Now, one of the other things that vegans tend to overlook, and the low-fat crowd tends to overlook, is insulin sensitivity. Chances are, if you are overweight or suffering from any metabolic symptoms, you have insulin resistance. This is not disputed. This is the truth. If you are experiencing these symptoms, you have some form of insulin resistance. It can happen in different parts of the body. You know, some people are highly, in my case, one of you actually pointed out, Zippy, who's kind of like my science nerd for the whole channel, has pointed out that he thinks that I have high insulin sensitivity in my adipose tissue, which is my fat, and insulin resistance everywhere else, pretty much, including my liver. And that is why when I carb up or I raise my carbohydrate levels, that I gain fat at an accelerated rate. And he says this is normal for most people that lose a lot of weight. You were fat to begin with, you lost all the weight. This is probably what's happening to you. And the way that you can keep the weight off is to lead a lifestyle that intervenes in that cycle. You see, you can be a vegan and lose a lot of weight. You're going to get to a plateau, guaranteed. Depending on your exercise level, there's a whole lot of factors involved. Some people who are insulin sensitive will be fine their whole life. They'll live a long, healthy vegan life. Even though there's another study that shows that of all the centenarians in our country, the ones that live to be over 100, none of them are vegetarian. So while you may be thinking, I'm fucking healthy, none of them are vegetarian, none of them are vegan. Look it up. It's a fact. So if you think you're going to live forever because you're a vegan, you're wrong. Guess what? Keto might not live forever either. There's a whole lot of things that go into whether or not you're going to fucking die. But your quality of life, that's a whole other story. Some people have a high quality of life being a vegan. And thank you. That's good. Be a vegan. I myself do not have a high quality of life as a vegan. I have a higher quality life ketogenic or low carb. Not necessarily. My goal is to become just low carb, not ketogenic. I don't want to be in ketosis for the rest of my life. Ketosis is the best way for me to lose weight. Low carb will be the best way for me to maintain weight. And by low carb, I mean probably 100 grams a day is what my maintenance is going to be. I'll play with it and see what happens. If I regain at a certain carb level, I'll lower my carb level until I stop regaining or losing weight. You know, it's going to require some playing and some self-experimentation to figure out what that is, but that's part of my plan. But let's listen to this quick excerpt from the A to Z study.
And so their conclusion was the insulin-sensitive people on a high carb versus a low carb, they actually did a little better on the high carb, but the insulin-resistant people did just the opposite. They did better on the low carb.
So it's right there. What works for you as a vegan doesn't necessarily work for someone like me that's been fat, overweight, suffering from insulin resistance, gaining a weight of about 10 pounds per year is what I was started out at. I was gaining about 10 pounds a year. So someone like me doing a high carb diet of any kind, whether it's vegan or fucking low fat high carb or Ornish or anything like that, I'm not going to do well. Personally, me. And a lot of other people that are in the same boat as me are also not going to do well. So it's dumb when somebody's like, I do this and it works for me, and then they think, that it must work for everybody. It's not how it works. My goal is to educate people who are like me, who know when they eat carbs, fucked up things happen. Not everybody is like that. And there's a lot of things involved. Genetics. Like, for example, I learned that Latino people do not tolerate fructose very well. They get fatty livers a lot quicker than a Caucasian would because they have a certain gene that doesn't fire right or something. I don't know. Dr. Lustig went over it. Look it up. And it causes them to have a higher rate of diabetes and metabolic syndrome when they consume fructose. That's a genetic problem. So they can't tolerate a high carb diet very well, especially if it has refined carbs and sugar in it. I mean, these are things you got to keep in mind. This is not a one size fits all. This is a what fits you best and what can you sustain over time. Any diet, I've already proven this to myself and through, they have research that supports it, the junk food diet or whatever it was study, where the guy ate nothing but crap and just ate so many calories a weight and proved that you could lose weight. I would have liked to see the long-term results because I'm willing to bet he would have plateaued and had some insane craving issues as time went on, but what do I know? But I've already proven my first 50 pounds of weight loss, I ate shit. But I intervened. How did I intervene? I increased the amount of time between meals, sometimes as long as 72 hours, 36 hours, 24 hours, alternate day fasting. I compensated for the carb load by giving myself long breaks where my insulin was low. And I was ravenous during some of it. I had cravings like you wouldn't fucking believe. I was like a goddamn meth addict wandering around outside the set of Breaking Bad, wondering if something fucking was real in there. I mean, that's how fucking addicted I was. I'm not that way anymore. And it was the reduction of carbs in my life that made it possible for me to overcome that situation. And I weight loss plateaued also doing that. My, constantly keeping my calories restricted on top of, having to do longer and longer periods of fasting to lose more weight. Or in some people's cases, they don't do fasting, they do exercise. So they do more and more exercise to lose weight. Oh, I plateaued, so I really got to crank out that extra hour and a half on the fucking treadmill. So it's the same thing. However you're dealing with the issue, it doesn't matter. You're going to get similar weight loss in the beginning, especially. Where you're going to run into problems is, if you can't sustain what you're doing. So if you're pounding the fuckmaster to keep your weight down, and there comes a point where you can't pound the fuckmaster anymore, guess what? You're going to gain it back. And you're going to gain it back faster than you lost it. Or if you're a heavy intermittent faster, but you're eating shit all the time, sooner or later you're going to plateau. And the minute, and I can attest to this because I've done it, the minute you stop fasting, you will gain weight fast. First, you'll put on all the water weight, 6 pounds right off the bat, and then you will gain a weight, for me, a rate of about a pound a day. A pound a day. There were weeks where it took me a whole week to lose 2 pounds, but when I'm gaining it back, I can gain it back at a pound a day when I'm carved up. That's insane. So I need something I can do the rest of my life, or I'm going to get fat again. It's like a no-brainer. And I'm exploring that. I'm going to explore where I sit at the end of this in carb tolerance and go from there. It may involve some rebound weight gain in the process, but that's what I'm trying to do. And I know what hormones I need to control to do it. And carbs are a way of controlling your hormones, insulin in particular. The only way you control your insulin is through carbs and to a lesser degree protein. I time my fucking protein and carbs for one meal out of the day now. Any other meals are fat only. So there's another thing. My goal, 1 insulin spike per day. I'll ride it out for a few hours. That's what I want to do. I don't want to constantly spike my insulin. I don't want it to be up all the time because I know that I can't touch my fat when that's the case, even if I'm in a ketogenic state. So that's what you got to understand is different people have different insulin sensitivities. There's one last excerpt that I wanted to play for you. I forget what it was, so let me just see and comment on it.
Of 35 and over and 30 and under, you get far more insulin-resistant people in the upper end. But what's intriguing is in the same range, you'll get a split, or you get a wide range of people who are more or less insulin-resistant. Okay.
Now, what he just said there, I kind of cut it off, but I'm gonna, reiterate it. Is even in the subtexts of weight loss, say you take 2 fat people and you put them side by side and you measure their insulin resistance and insulin sensitivity, you can have somebody who is insulin sensitive and overweight, mostly an overconsumption issue, versus somebody who is insulin resistant. And it turns out the solution to each one of those people to lose weight is different. One has to just reduce his consumption or increase his energy expenditure and he'll probably be fine. The other has to address it through hormonal means. He has to attack the insulin levels actively, and the only way to do that is to reduce carbs. Which category are you in? That's what you got to ask yourself when you decide which one of these fucking diets works for you. So the main things you got to answer. Can I do this the rest of my life? Whatever you're doing to lose weight, can you do it the rest of your life? Are you happy with your diet, with your exercise level? Will you be able to do this when you're in your 60s and 70s? And I got news for you exercise motherfuckers. In your 60s and 70s, you'll be happy if you can walk around the mall. You ain't going to be on no fucking treadmill. You're not going to be doing 5x5s in the fucking resistance training unless you're one of the exceptional old fucks that is able to do that. Because we age, we die, we decay. How quickly that happens, we have a little say in. But in the end, we're all going to fucking die, and we're all going to die badly of one of the diseases that we're trying to prevent. It's just a question of when. You can't really prevent if you're going to have a heart attack. You can prolong how long it takes for you to have your heart attack. Because for some of us are genetically fucked. There's heart disease that runs in my family. I'm very likely a candidate. I'm hoping that some of the dietary changes I've made have set my time frame back a little. Instead of having a grabber in my 50s and 60s, maybe it'll happen when I'm 70 or 80, and I'm okay with that. That's, what you got to come to terms with. Can't prevent death. Sorry, no matter what diet you're on, whether you're a vegan saving the animals or you're a ketogenic eating every fucking cow in sight, you're not gonna fucking prevent death. But you can make it take a lot longer. And it comes down to quality of life at that point. Are you happy and sustainable in the things you're doing to get there. So I did have another site that kind of, breaks down in a vlog style on, some of the myths that vegans propagate. But I don't, having talked a little bit, I don't think I need to get into that much. Except to say, go out there and do your homework. Figure out whether you are insulin sensitive or not. And you might be like, how the fuck do I do that? Well, if you do not have any of the metabolic syndrome precursors, chances are, if you've been eating a standard American diet and you don't have these issues, that you are insulin sensitive and you have a high carb tolerance. So just cut out the refined processed foods and sugars and you're good to go. You can have some fruit, you can have some fucking whole grains, I guess, but you know what? You could probably do without those because those aren't healthy. They're not. I don't care what you say. Nothing that you're going to get me to say is going to cause me to believe that overconsumption of pasta when your glycogen stores are full is a healthy situation, because it isn't. Because your body's going to convert it into bad fats, the low density LDL that clogs your fucking arteries is what's going to happen when you eat your healthy pasta while your glycogen stores are full. So, okay, you want to eat your pasta? Go to the gym and do a depletion workout first, aka carb backloading. Because then your body will shunt most of what you eat into your glycogen stores instead of creating fat. So who's the winner in my book? Whatever fucking works for you is the winner. Okay? Whatever gives you the results, the quality of life, and the health that you want. If you haven't hit your goal yet, you really don't know if what you're doing is something that you can do forever. The goal is a lifestyle change that will be conducive to a healthier body weight, reduce your chances of metabolic syndrome, diabetes, cancer, and all of these issues. You're never going to eliminate these issues. They can still happen, and probably will as you get a lot older. But you can make it take a long time. That is the best you're going to get with our food supply. So unless you can change the food supply, which there's people campaigning, but let's fucking face it, it's the big dollars. Big dollars are what control the food supply, not your health. So you got to do the best you can with the tools you got. Intermittent fasting turns out is a very powerful tool to have in your toolbox. Whether you're a vegan, a low-fat, high-carb diet, a standard American diet, a junk food shit diet, or a ketogenic diet, intermittent fasting can help you be healthier than somebody who is not intermittent fasting. Will you be the healthiest? Depends on what you're eating. It does. It still does depend. Even if you're losing the weight, you could still lose the weight and drop dead of a grabber. You could still have visceral fat. I still have visceral fat, and I've been targeting it. That's why I went ketogenic. All the rest of my fat is fucking gone. All right? I got some loose skin and some fucking muscle. When I go work out, my fucking veins pop out of my arms. My face, thin as fuck. All not quite emaciated, but getting there. I'm pretty low fat. And if the fat in my face, my arms, and legs, gone. But my visceral fat around my internal organs, my midsection, I'm still 38 inches there. They say you're supposed to be 35, for me, 35 inches or 34 inches. It's supposed to be half your height in circumference around your waist is healthy. I'm 38. I was 44 inches around my belly button when I started. I just recently started measuring again because I'm like, well, maybe, part of my problem is I'm still not, no. I'm still fat around the mid. I'm still unhealthy because of that. That is where all the vital shit is. And that's where I'm keeping my fat. So, and I have to work really hard to get at that fat. Body doesn't want to let it go for some reason. Insulin resistance is probably, if I had to guess where I'm insulin resistant, my guess would be right there. Around my vital organs, particularly my liver. That's where my fat is. chances are if you look down and your gut's bigger than your fucking belt line, you're probably in the same boat and have the same resistance as I do and would not benefit from a high carb diet. So the winner for me, ketogenic for now, for weight loss, and then low carb, have maybe about 30% carbs. It will be my breakdown. Depending on, about 100 grams is what I want to go for. So to all you vegans out there, keep being vegans. I don't give a fuck. I really don't. I'm not going to convert. I'm not going to change. I'm not going to change what I say. I'm not going to try and be like, oh, it's okay to eat this, that, and the other. No. I'm just here to share with you. I'm not an expert. I'm just an asshole sharing with you what is working. Shit. I'm just an asshole sharing with you what is working for me. And that's the best I can do. And if you've followed this channel, I've progressed and changed my outlook on quite a few things, particularly the processed food issue. I used to be like, fuck it. I'm happier eating this way. Then I realized I wasn't happier eating that way. And I changed it to see if I would be happier eating a better way, and I'm happier eating a better way. I like my ketogenic diet. I was looking forward to coming back to it after the shit I felt this last weekend. So, no further fucking feedback would be complete without going over some of your comments. Jill Fiend writes, you should feel lucky. You can have 50 grams of carbs. I gain weight with that many. I think you are right, though. There's a little testimony for you right there that we all don't have the same carb tolerances. And I really feel for Jill and others like her that have an insanely low carb tolerance. I would like to be able to try and improve mine and help other people improve theirs. The jury's still out on whether long-term intermittent fasting and ketogenic diet improves your long-term carb tolerance. Yeah, acutely it makes it worse. But what happens when you do this for a really, really long time? We're talking a couple years. And then you slowly reintegrate carbs back into your life. Are you better off than you were before? That's a study has yet to be done. Most of the ketos I see, they're either straight up been keto for 14 years and don't deviate at all, or there's nobody that's gone keto for a long term that I know of and then gone back to having carbs in their life and been studied to see what happens health-wise, body weight-wise, or anything like that. If you know of a study out there that points that out, I want to read it. But we don't know that yet. Hopefully they'll do something like that in the future. Because it's important. It's important to know these things if we're going to survive in this toxic food environment, which isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Anti-DSR writes, I have to say I got the same shitty experience as you after eating keto. Doing some IF in a time span of 3 weeks, I felt good. I was expecting feeling great, but it was okay. Just a quick response to that. You're not going to feel great on a ketogenic diet. You will feel great on a longer fast. There'll be a time where you feel euphoric and great and high energy and sharp as a tack. Keto, you're going to be level. You're not going to feel great, but you're also not going to feel like dog shit. You're going to be right here in the middle on a ketogenic diet. Still overall feeling good. Then I decided I'll eat 2 buns with butter, some cheese, and some salami. But man, those 2 buns, they knocked me out. I went to bed straight away and slept for an hour. I don't even recall feeling that bad in recent years. After I got up feeling like shit, I got a lot of craving and my initial plan to fast went out the window. I have to agree with you. I planned on doing ADF, and yesterday was supposed to be a fasting day. I got to about 24 hours. I was craving and hungry. I ate keto, and I ate till I was satisfied, which was probably about 30 grams of carbs with about 1,100 to 1,200 calories was my meal yesterday. That was it. I was good after that. I also had my heavy cream after my 16-hour fast in the morning. So, yeah, it's acutely a ketogenic diet does reduce your carb tolerance. It'll bounce back. 3 to 4 days is about what I'm hearing from a lot of different places. After 4 days, your carb tolerance goes back. Long term, I'm hoping that it doesn't do any damage to your overall carb tolerance, as in, will you be less carb tolerant, after you readapt to carbs than you were before you were on the ketogenic diet? I don't know yet. That's a risk I'm taking because I can sustain a ketogenic diet. I can do this the rest of my life if I have to. And maybe that's better for me. Maybe that's what I have to do. Maybe that's the way my genetics are wired. I have to come to terms with that whatever intervention I'm doing to lose weight and keep it off may be permanent. I may have to keep this intervention going for the rest of my life. And I'm willing to do that. I can fast for the rest of my life. I can use low carb and ketogenic diet the rest of my life because I've figured out how to make it work for me. And that's what you got to do with any diet. When you just diet for a while and you go back and you diet and you go back, that is a recipe for fatness, damage, health, failure, you name it. You can't just bounce in and out of diets. You have to pick something you can stick with the rest of your life. Yeah, cheat days every now and then aside. I'm talking majority of your time you should be able to do these diets and protocols. All right, here's one of them vegan motherfuckers. Rob Gore writes, Scott, I agree with you on the view that processed food and in particular processed carbs are bad for you, but you cannot put all carbs in the same basket. Yeah, you can, because it turns out all the fucking carbs go into the same fucking basket. Did you know that? All the carbs you eat are stored as glycogen. Once your glycogen's full, guess where the basket that they put them in? Your fat fucking ass is where those fucking carbs go. Doesn't matter if you ate whole wheat. Yeah, you can slow down how quickly those carbs get to your ass with a lot of fiber, but you know what? They're still gonna get into your ass. So keep that in mind. They are all going to the same fucking basket. Fructose, however, that doesn't get it to the basket on your ass. Fructose, when you consume it, which is, by the way, in a lot of fruits, too. If your glycogen's full and you consume fructose, yeah, even if you slowly absorb it, that fat stays right there in the middle. Around your liver, it gets released as low-density LDL into your fucking bloodstream and clogs your arteries. All kinds of bad shit can happen if you're eating fructose with full glycogen, liver glycogen. It's really that simple. So, I'm sorry, but you need to go out and do some fucking homework before you spout off, not all carbs are bad. No. All carbs in moderation are not bad if your glycogen is repeatedly low or depleted in some way. I'm not saying empty. I'm saying you're doing enough to keep your levels from spilling over. And for most people, it's not a lot of carbs to get to that level. So carbs are not evil. It's what happens with the carbs once you eat them. And you can have a little bit of say in that. If you do a fucking 36-hour fast and you go and eat a Pop-Tart, guess where that Pop-Tart's going? Into your liver as glycogen, because your glycogen's depleted. If you've been eating 6 meals a day and you eat a fucking, a couple apples or whatever other high fructose fucking fruits are out there, but your glycogen's full, guess where that apple's going? It's going to be fat. It's going to be in your ass basket. All right. Sorry. Don't mean to pick on you, but you gotta understand some biochemistry here. You just can't come in and spout off, not all carbs, this carb is better than that carb. All carbs have a similar effect. Fructose has a worse effect. That's why I'm so against, processed foods and carbs. Fructose is alcohol without the buzz. And it's just as bad for you as alcohol as far as health goes. If you were to overconsume alcohol, you would kill your liver. Same thing with fructose. Over-consuming anything is bad for you, by the way. You can over-consume water. He goes on to write, you still have good carbs like potatoes and other whole foods. Not if your glycogen's full. Still goes in your ass. And you can lose weight just eating the good carbs. Well, yeah, if you restrict your calories and keep your glycogen depleted by going to the fucking gym, you can probably eat a lot more carbs than someone who sits on their fat ass all day. I'm not disputing that at all. You know, there's more than one way to deplete your glycogen. You like going to the gym? Eat all the fucking potatoes you want. I myself don't have time to go every day or exercise every day. I got a lot of shit to do. I don't want to spend my time going, chugga, 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 fuck, get rid of my fat. Oh yeah, look at that sweat, it's burning. No, that's not what I want to do with my time. And it turns out the cavemen weren't doing that with their time either. They had to run because they were chasing something or they were getting chased by something. But most of the time they sat on their ass. They sat on their ass a lot less than we do because they didn't have like the fucking internet. But fact remains that we're not designed to be constantly, running or lifting heavy shit. We lift heavy shit in small doses. We run in small doses. And we walk a lot. I'm all for walking. Walk all you want. Walking's great. For example, check this guy who is just eating potatoes and has lost a lot of weight. Okay, let's look at that live right here. I haven't looked at this video ahead of time, so I don't know what we're getting into. Well, let's fucking tear into this.
It seems
of
like
course, there's an ad.
Spudster Ruse.
Okay, Spud Fit Challenge number 110. He looks pretty thin. Was he fat to begin with? Let me see here. Let's see. He's just eating potatoes.
Spudsterinos.
School teacher Andrew Taylor's tried them all, except maybe Beyonce's, in a bid to lose weight and break his food addiction.
I was binge eating and I was overeating, and I thought about addictions in general and how if you're a drug addict or an alcohol addict, then the best thing you can do is to quit cold turkey and never touch those things again. And obviously you can't do that with food.
But on the 1st of Jan this year, Andrew decided the next best thing would be to quit all foods but one.
I did a lot of research to see if it was possible to do that, and all my research led me.
So let me get this straight. You eat fucking potatoes all the time? That's sustainable. Yeah, I could do that the rest of my life. Are you fucking serious with this shit? I mean, potatoes. Just potatoes?
To potatoes because they were the most well-rounded nutritionally. I'll just eat the food that looks most like me.
I had said to him, I'm happy.
Are you fucking serious? That you presented this as a video to argue your point? I was hoping maybe you would give me a scientific video or a lecture by a nutritionist or a scientist, and you give me the potato guy.
For you to do it, but only if you go and see a doctor. If you get monitored, then I'm cool with it.
Andrew's GP wasn't totally sold on the idea.
I was willing to support him, but like other nutritionists, I had some.
By the way, a GP is a general practitioner, and they don't know shit. So you know, they don't know shit. They know what their guidelines tell them to do, and that's it. And a lot of them don't venture outside the realm of, current medical knowledge, which we all know is crap.
Reservations. I suggested that Andrew add in perhaps a small amount of green vegetables.
But Andrew was only interested in the most boring meals possible.
The point of it is that I don't want to get emotional.
So the way to control his addiction was to make the meals suck. Yeah, that don't work for me. I want my meals to be good. I want to enjoy it. I want to sit down and have me a nice big fucking steak. Some bacon. I mean, who can argue that bacon isn't fucking great? Isn't fucking taste awesome? And it turns out the fat in it is good for you. And it lowers your protein intake when you do it. So you're not getting a shit ton of protein. You're getting enough protein.
Comfort and support and enjoyment from eating food, and that's the way I think I'm going to break the addiction.
I totally support you, Andrew. Here's to your noble quest.
I'm just having MASH boiled potatoes and baked potatoes. I'm not having any oil whatsoever, so that...
Okay, I'm going to stop. Because by your rationale, because this one motherfucker, lost weight eating only potatoes, somehow that's good. There's another study out there. Let me see if I can find it real quick. It's called the Twinkie diet. So let's look at this. This tells you about a man that lost 27 pounds eating only shit. He took some vitamin and nutrient supplements and ate shit. So your vegan fucking philosophy presentation to me about carbs, well, I don't even know that you're a vegan. You are trying to make the high carb, low fat pitch. Your pitch to me is because one motherfucker ate nothing but potatoes and lost weight. Probably because potatoes suck and he didn't want to eat a whole lot of them. And that's what he said. That is what you're saying is healthy. Meanwhile, you got this motherfucker ate everything that is in the middle of the store, the 80% shit, not even the worst of that. Like chips, fucking processed foods, Twinkies, Oreos, Doritos. What else has he got in here? So he ate all of this shit, and I bet you he felt great. I bet you he wasn't hungry at all. You think? Come the fuck on, people. Please. If you're gonna show me a video, show me something remotely scientific, even if it's biased, okay? Show me a scientist saying that because this fucking biochemical process is happening in the body, must be the conclusion. I so enjoy those videos a hell of a lot more than some fuckface who sat there and ate potatoes, or if you look at the banana lady, ate all the fucking bananas. That is complete horseshit. Okay? And probably very unhealthy, and definitely unhealthy for some people with metabolic syndrome and diabetes. Just because this guy lost weight, we don't know a whole lot about this guy. We don't know his insulin sensitivity or his insulin resistance. I can tell by looking at him, he still has visceral fat. That's skinny on the outside, fat on the inside, for those of you keeping notes. And will probably still have some severe health issue. He's not doing himself any favors eating fucking potatoes all the time. And I would hope he's doing a shit ton of exercise or some fasting with them potatoes. Because if he's doing that shit for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, he is going to have a serious medical condition, probably in his 50s and 60s. Which is early, by the way, in my book. 70s, where I want to go before I start getting fucked up. So, if you're going to comment and you're going to try and submit a counterpoint to what I'm doing, please give me something scientific. Don't give me this crap. Don't send me a Dr. Greger video or a fucking vegan biased study. Show me an unbiased study, like the one I just showed you by a fucking vegetarian who had to admit that the people doing Atkins were slightly healthier than everybody else in his trial. He wasn't happy about that. So that's all I got for today. I'm wore out. I can't fight with vegans. If you're a vegan and I pissed you off, I'm sorry. But keep doing what you're doing. I don't have a problem with it, to be honest with you. It's not for me. I don't believe it is for people with metabolic syndrome. I don't believe it's for people with diabetes. And I don't believe it's for people with cancer. I believe if you have any of those conditions, you need to treat it with a low-carb, high-fat approach. And the worse your condition is, the more intervention is necessary in my book. I have watched from my girlfriend's improvement in blood sugars and A1C. I've seen it reverse the numbers in my mother. I've seen plenty of evidence by doctors who practice this as a treatment in reducing diabetes, in normalizing health markers, in eliminating metabolic syndrome and obesity. So nothing you try with your let's save the animals horseshit is going to convince me otherwise unless you start bombarding me with science, or at least with some kind of observational study that isn't biased. You know, unless you can point out in the biochemistry book why what you're saying is true, I'm not going to probably buy into it. Okay? Show me the biochemistry. Understand the human body. Understand how it works. Understand the reasons why we are all different. I don't know everything. I'm not a fucking scientist. I rely on scientists who I think know their shit, based roughly on the fact that they don't bias themselves one way or another. They examine all the data. They're willing to admit if something doesn't jive with their shit. Those are the ones I pay closest attention to. Constantly combative and argumentative scientists, namely Dr. Greger is one of the ones I'm talking about, you know, that ignore a lot of data that is contrary to that. Not very happy about that. I don't like watching people like that because it pisses me off. And the reason it pisses me off is because there's somebody who doesn't know a lot, hasn't done a lot of research, that will watch just that, think that's the end-all be-all, and change their lifestyle according to that, and probably, if they're a certain kind of body type or a certain kind of insulin resistance or disease, will go out and hurt themselves or die because of what that motherfucker said. So that's why I get passionate about it. That's why I make fun of vegans, because it's a diet based on political agenda, not health. Okay? And there's any number of people I've seen, including the Hodge twins, who have gone vegan and couldn't sustain it, didn't want to sustain it, or had other health issues because of it. So, if it works for you, do it. But don't tell somebody who's sick that your diet is the cure unless you can back that shit up with some science. And that being said, I'm not a fucking expert. Everything I say here is opinion. You can go out and get this fucking knowledge for yourself. Go out, do your Google searches. Put the word study in your search so that maybe you get some scientific bullshit instead of some dickhead's fucking advertise-laden blog that circulates around fucking Facebook. You're going to run into a lot of that out there. What you do in that situation is look at the references. A lot of them have little references. You click the reference studies. Some of them are nice enough to even provide you the links to this directly to the studies. Do your fucking homework. Find something that you can do that science supports as a healthy solution to your problem, whatever your problem may be. That's all I've ever done. I addressed my weight loss problem with fasting. I addressed my hunger and cravings issue with a ketogenic diet. I am targeting my belly fat now and my visceral fat to get my waist level to where it should be. After that, I'll shift to a maintenance low-carb diet and call it a day. And hopefully do enough fasting to offset my carb levels. That's all I'm doing, people. That's what I'm doing. So, sorry for the excessively long video, but as you know, Motherfuckin Feedback is a long talk show style, podcast style bullshit that's gonna answer my opinion or give a detailed analysis of different things that bother me or that I feel passionate about. So, please, thank you for all of you who have liked and subscribed. I'm approaching 100,000 views total for the channel, which I never thought I would ever get to. I do appreciate all of you who watch me regularly and who interact with me and who bring up good, valid points to help further the cause and further my knowledge and your knowledge and the knowledge of people that need this help, that need to get their weight under control for their health and their loved ones and the overall well-being of us as a country or as a world, because of the amount of money that's being just completely wasted on healthcare right now that could be prevented if we just made a few changes here and there. So I'm on board with, Dr. Lustig's one of my favorites. Dr. Atia, A-T-T-I-A, I believe is how you spell it. Dr. Fung. Those are my big three that I respect the most right now, because they legit care. They've tested their theories out on patients and shown positive results. They like to look into studies. Dr. Lustig's pretty much he went to law school on top of his, doctor's degree is in pediatric endocrinology, which is hormone therapy. Hormone replacement therapy is what that is, by the way. So he knows his hormones. He knows his biochemistry. And he went to law school so he can try and figure out a way to change the food supply, which is currently, if you're a ketogenic dieter, it is a fucking minefield out there, and it is very difficult to sustain this diet for that reason, because of the availability of food variety. You can only eat so many fucking eggs and bacon so many fucking days before you want some variety. That's where the cheat days have been coming in for me. So, keep that in mind. But remember, I'm not an expert. I'm just a fucking asshole. Have a nice fucking day.